All right, welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to talk about categories and why they are so important as you are building your website in Joomla. Let's open up our back panel here. And the way that you get to categories and be able to work with them is under the Content menu item. And it's the Category Manager that we want to talk about in this lesson. With the sample data that we installed when we installed Joomla, it brought in two categories. One is called Uncategorized and one is called News. And you might be asking, well, why would you ever have a category called Uncategorized? And it's a good question. But you'll find that as you work on your website, there will be a few articles or pages on your website that are unique. They can't be grouped together with any other concept or any other idea. They all just they're kind of one-offs. They're standalone. For example, the About Us article that we did in our last tutorial, we're not going to make any more About Us articles. And so it doesn't make sense to have a category called About Us when there's only one article inside. And over the next 3 or 4 years, as you work with your website and it grows, you'll probably come across this situation again and again where you're creating a page that is so unique it doesn't fit into any other category and you're not going to make any more like it. That is the kind of articles that you will throw into Uncategorized. All right, so what we want to do is create a number of categories here. And some people might be asking, well, what is a category and why do we need to have categories? Well, categories is what brings organizational structure to your website. If it helps, think of it in terms of a file structure system, like the file folders on your hard drive. Now, here's one of my hard drives here, and it's a large hard drive. I think it's 3 terabytes, and it has thousands of files on it. Can you imagine if I would not have created any file structure system here using folders and just thrown everyone out into the ocean, shall we call it, of the D drive? Can you imagine how difficult it would be after a while to find the file that I'm looking for? But by creating folders, and many times, folders within folders, and sometimes there's even folders within folders within folders to help you organize your hard drive so it'll make it easier to access and find things. Well, it's the same idea here with categories. Categories is just the English word that Joomla went with. If it helps, think more in terms of folders. All right, so how do we add new categories? Simply go up to the New button, click it once, and that will bring up a dialog page. It looks very similar to an article. In fact, it uses the same JCE editor and has a very similar look to the article page. But it is different, and what we need to do at this point is give our categories a title or a name. And as you're coming up with titles of your categories or names of your folders, shall we say, try and think of a name that is descriptive of the type of content that you plan to put in that folder. And this will make it very easy to recognize, 6 months down the road, a year down the road, when you come back to work on this particular website, not only yourself, but you could think in terms of staff members that you might have, that you might assign the task of updating your website. Once you develop it and create it and design it, you're going to probably turn it over to a staff member to keep current. Well, it'll be very helpful if they are able to look at your list of categories and very quickly get an idea of what's likely to be in that category. Or you might have a consultant come in and work on it. And so just having good descriptive titles will help you in the future as other people try and work with your creation here. Another good tip to keep in mind when you are coming up with names of your categories is to come up with names that are appropriate, names that you will not be afraid to be seen on your website. Joomla can be designed in such a way that the actual names of your categories will automatically appear at different points in your website. You can shut that off, but it's just good practice to make these titles so that they're not going to be offensive to anybody, that they have good spelling, they are not some type of cryptic acronym. Even if you set Joomla to not display the titles, there's a good chance that they might show up in the tabs of some browsers or in the metadata. They might show up in a search engine when somebody is looking for your site. So just keep in mind that whatever you type in here is open to the public and should be appropriate and not offensive. So with that in mind, let's come up with some good categories to work with. One big category will probably be articles. We're basically done creating our first category just by typing in the name. Now, there are other options. You could go down here and write a little article about what's in your category. You could add photographs to your category, even video clips. I mean, you could give a full description of your category and make that public so that you can have a way of kind of introducing a whole grouping of articles that you want to share with the public. But for the purposes of this tutorial, we'll just leave that blank and just basically create our categories. Now, one more thing about categories is that you can choose to either have this as a parent category, or we could call it a main folder if you like, or we could choose to put it inside one of these other categories and make it a subcategory or a subfolder of one of the parent folders that are already there. Okay, but in this case, I want articles to be a main parent folder, so I'll just leave that as is. Now, we could just go up and do save and close. However, it's probably faster at this point when we're creating a number of categories all in one setting to choose to use the save and new, because what this will do is save the category that we just created, plus bring up a new window ready for you to create your next category. I think I'm going to create some subcategories for my articles, and so we'll do featured. And because we want this to be a subcategory, we're going to go over to parent here. This might actually be a little easier if we did it something like this. We're going to go under parent and choose to put this under articles. Do save and new. And I'd like a few more under articles. So we will do blog articles. I'll set that under articles and save and new. Now, another typical set of articles that we often do are frequently asked questions. And you could just use the acronym there, frequently asked questions. It's quite common enough. I think most people know what that is when they see that. But just to help out the search engines and others who may not be as computer savvy, we might as well just type it out. And once again, we'll put that under articles, save and new. And the news is actually something that I would probably want to put under articles. So let's maybe cancel this. And let's click on the news. You remember that came in with our sample data. Let's click on that and change this from being a parent category and put it under articles. Let's hit save and close and see if that shows up properly. Okay, well, that doesn't look quite right. All of these four should be underneath articles. Oh, it's probably just because of the order of that we have been assigned up here, order descending. Let's change that to order ascending. And yes, now all of our four subcategories or subfolders, if you want to call them that, are now showing under articles. All right, so let's go back and create some more. I want to create another main folder called portfolio. Save and new. And our next one will be video production. And we'll put that under portfolio. Now, under video production, since this is kind of like the main thing that we do in our business, I maybe want to create some subcategories of that subcategory. So we might say something like, and we'll go over and put that under video production. Joomla lets you do that, create subcategories of subcategories. And that just adds another level of organization to your structure as you create these categories. Okay, save and new, and well, you get the idea of how you can create these categories. I don't think you need to sit here and watch me create my whole list. Maybe what I'll do is put you on pause while I finish up here, and then I'll come back to you. All right, well, I think I'm done, and here is my list. I know it's not a very long list, but this is basically just a simple brochure site, portfolio site that people can come to and get an idea of the type of work that the people do at this fictional video production center. But you can imagine if this was a major online website store, how many categories they would end up making and subcategories, and how that organizational structure would help bring order out of chaos as people try to work with the construction of the site and maintenance of the site. And I am sure that if this was an actual website of a actual business, especially if it was a growing business, that this list of categories would grow over the years as well as people added more and more content to the site. Just one more point on categories, and this will become more clear in the future as we begin to add articles to our website. By setting up this structure, whenever we create an article now, we have to assign that article to one of these categories. And not only does that keep everything organized, but it also helps make updating the website a lot faster, a lot easier, because every time you create a new article and you assign it to one of these categories, you can set up Joomla so that it will automatically show up at the right place on your website without having to do any more work. And so not only does it bring organizational structure, it also helps make updating your website a lot faster in the end. All right, well, I believe that that does it for categories in Joomla.